Hello and good evening. Welcome to this week's episode of Paranormal Lens. I am Jamie Wyden, your host for this evening. I'm joined by, as always, by my co-host Chad Thomas. Chad, good evening. What's happening? What's shaking? What's new?
Oh, just busy time of year. School with kids and work got busy and all those things. So, how about
Yeah.
you? What's
So
going on?
just that life thing keeps getting in the way of all my fun stuff.
Yeah.
Having a day job kind of drags sometimes when you want to do fun things like this and the research and get out and do stuff. And spooky season is here, so it's time to start thinking about where the outside stuff's going to go.
Uh-huh.
The collective things that we all kind of tuck away, kind of like Christmas decorations, the same way, but not as cool. When we get the Halloween stuff out, it's kind of like, chills in the air. It's like fall has fallen really quick. It was 90 like a week ago, and now it's 60.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Mother Nature forgot to pay the heat bill this month. So go figure. Here we are. Getting dark a little earlier. I have a
Mm-hmm.
I have a neighbor nearby who goes all out for Halloween, and I'm starting to see things pop up in their yard, and it's only a matter of time until the lights come up in the trees and all the stuff, and it's like a beacon yard
Okay.
for Halloween. So, and there's another neighbor over in another block over or so, and the same thing. They're starting to put stuff out slowly. So it's like, yeah, let's get there. So anyway, so that's not why we're here, though, right?
Right.
We need to talk about something that's a fun place, a cool and interesting thing. Something I've had the opportunity to do. Unfortunately, though, a long time ago. We're going to talk tonight about the mystery spot in Santa Cruz, California.
Okay.
The area is a very well. My time there was back in the early '90s, so 30-ish, 30 years ago. But it's not too much different now than it was then too. Where we're talking about Central Coast, California, moderate climate. It's a great place to be as far as all season weather. Go a little further north. You're about an hour or so, hour and a half, maybe south of San Jose, which is about another hour southeast of San Francisco and Oakland. So you're not too far from being in major metro, but yet you have the beach vibe that you would expect at like a Rehoboth here on the East Coast, or a Myrtle Beach, a little further down. There's surfing, there's sun, there's just some cool vibes, and it's right next to the Santa Cruz Mountains, which is where the mystery spot is. And
Okay.
if you go to the next slide, this is kind of what that area looks like.
Okay.
It's
Hey,
still
Jamie, no pressure, but the Bay Area Ghost Patrol has given you a thumbs up already.
nice. Well, welcome.
So,
Thanks for joining us. The area is still a lot like this. And that there's a lot of outdoor activities, biking, hiking, the fun stuff that you got in the woods. And these are sequoias. So, redwoods, not sequoias. And so that, it's got this hue of redness in the woods. Is such a cool place. I really enjoy my time there. And one of the things you have to do when you visit is go to the mystery spot. So it's a place. Okay. And you may ask me, Chad, why are we doing this on Paranormal Lens? Right?
Jamie, why are we doing this on Paranormal Lens?
Because according to Merriam-Webster, the definition of paranormal is something that is not scientifically explainable.
Okay.
And that's what this place has been for the last 80 years. So we're talking about 4 miles east of downtown Santa Cruz. So not far from civilization, not like out in the middle of nowhere completely. There's a location called the Mystery Spot. This location was discovered in 1939 and is a place where traditional views of the laws of gravity and physics have been challenged ever since. I'll explain more in a second. So there's a backstory, right? How was it discovered? Why? How'd this happen? So the hills above Santa Cruz, desired location for people to live, right? It's a little out of the way. You can put a house up there, have some views of the ocean, not too far off in the distance. We're only talking 4 miles from downtown, which is basically at the ocean. And Santa Cruz is at the top of the Monterey Bay, which is picturesque. And the cruise and drive along the Monterey Bay is beautiful. A little further down, you get to Monterey, and then you get down below that, you get into like Big Sur and some really gorgeous places. So this is a natural beauty kind of element, and it's a desirable location for people to want to live. So a local man was trying to find a plot to build a house on, and he went out with some surveyors to look at a plot that he had found. that was for sale. And as they were traversing through the woods, they came across a place. And well, first of all, I should say that the seller was not willing to part with the plot he wanted unless he was willing to take on another plot slightly to the north of this where he was going to build a house. And he thought, okay, that's kind of strange, but let's look at it. And here's how they landed there. So the surveyors were going along, and as they were moving through, they found that their compasses were losing in transit, which essentially means that they were not holding true north, and even by as much as 180 degrees, which is literally a whole other direction, right?
Right.
They initially brushed this off as being an interference from either local, like a barbed wire fence that was along the property line, or perhaps there was some kind of underground mineral deposit, and both of which back in the 30s, could have been considered, because science and technology wasn't as advanced, could have been considered natural elements that would have thrown a compass off, at least to some degree, maybe not quite as much. Mm-hmm. So as they were passing back down through, they came through a little canyon, and there they started to feel a little uneasy and maybe a little lightheaded. And then they again were intrigued by this, what's going on here? And then they started to recheck their instruments once again, and they found that they were having increased inaccuracies with their devices. So they started walking off the plot as it was, the space that this was happening in, and it wound up being a radius of about 150 feet, which is a circle, right? Which hence became known as the mystery spot, as it is still today. So, okay, as this was discovered, the buyer bought the land but scrapped the plans for the house that he wanted to build and wound up opening it in 1941 to the general public under what we now know as the official mystery spot. If you go to the next slide. It's an attraction. It's a place, right? So you buy a ticket, you have a time to show up, there's a tour, but what you get to experience while you're there is the real element of why it's called the mystery spot. You go next slide, please. So what happens here, and again, here's a group of people, there's a guide with you. What happens here is gravity appears to have less effect. People can lean in on angles that would make them fall under normal conditions. Round items, things that would normally roll uphill, or do not move when placed on a declined thing where they should generally roll away. They stay stationary. A lot of electrical instruments malfunction when used inside the spot radius, and people can feel dizzy or disoriented, much like the surveyors did back in the day. Next slide, please. Ta-da! Right? That's odd. That's not normal. And
right.
And this dude, he's a guide, so he looks totally normal doing this because he probably does it all day long, right? But you can imagine this helps you feel slightly disoriented. And so what causes this? And I'll go back to the definition, the scientific explanation. There's been a lot of years of trying to figure out why this is, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of opinion, some scientific, some, I'll go not so much, right?
Right.
Because everybody's got an opinion. So one of the things that's believed that there could be a magma vortex underground, and that's the buildup of magma that may influence equipment. It's unlikely though, because of the lack of volcanic activity in this region. There are volcanoes further north. We know about Mount St. Helens and so forth as you get up into Washington and Oregon, mostly Washington, the northern corner, the great Northwest. Okay. Not a lot of activity in the central coast of California. Although if you believe the old movie Volcano with Tommy Lee Jones, there is an active volcano under the La Brea tar pits in LA. So anything's possible. Mm-hmm. The other is the location is a proximity to the San Andreas Fault. Okay. So the fault line's relatively close to the east. If so, there would be other active areas such as this along the fault, which runs 750 miles along the base of the spine of California along the Santa Cruz Mountains, and to the up through the north out into the ocean. Highly unlikely, although you never know. One that I particularly find interesting as a child of the 80s is that it's believed that it's because there's a hole in the ozone layer, and that hole is in a fixed location over this spot. Right. Okay. All that hairspray we were all using back in the day, back when you had your big perm.
Right.
Horseshoe pants, all that stuff. Yeah. Don't act like you didn't do it. Come on now. I'm not saying anything about myself on this at all. Maybe got a mullet, maybe. But so the belief there is that there is cosmic energy coming through that hole, coming down to this location, and then causing this anomalous space, because it is, again, about a round area.
Okay.
Again, we've proven that the ozone layer is intact, and we've worked with the banning of all of those fluorochlorides. I can't even say the word, to get away from that stuff, to improve that. There is still elements in the North and South poles where there are still weak spots, perhaps, but not that.
Right.
Natural low-level ground radiation. Okay. And that's occurring in lots of places around the world. So that's a possibility. This one seems more plausible than anything for me. This could explain the malfunctioning of the equipment and perhaps the feeling of being unwell, but the radar, there's radiation detecting equipment that's been used on site, and it's not found any evidence to support this. So, but again, an opinion. These last two are my favorites. I'm saving them. So one belief is that there are metallic cones buried underground to serve as guidance for UFOs. Okay. Bring out your tinfoil cap for this, right? It's a bit far-fetched, but maybe, right? You never know. I'm trying not to roll my eyes at this. And then the last one is by far the best one. It is a actual UFO that's buried underground. So if you believe in the plausibility of H.G. Wells' classic novel, The War of the Worlds, or if someday something's going to come up out of the ground and take over, and work to annihilate mankind, this might be the place where it starts, right? So, what I find really curious, though, with all of these things, and I'm sure there are many others, these are the key ones that I found, but one of the things that I think is really interesting is we now progress with technology and access to resources, things like LiDAR and GPR, the ground penetrating radars and the ground scanning devices that we have out there. There's a lot of good stuff that's now available, that's more readily available than ever before.
Right.
The key here, though, is I don't know that the ownership of this place wants that to be found. And that's their business, right? And it's a cool place. It's a fun place to go hang out for a couple hours. There's a hiking trail nearby. You get out into the woods. You go see something different. You get to do something fun like this, and enjoy yourself. And actually, go to the next slide, please. Here's the element of something that should be rolling. Showing the level that ball should be moving toward us in that picture, and it's not.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where I don't think we really want to know what's going on, because our imagination makes it more fun not to. And as a visitor, I could say that I was one of many who came by. There are about 500,000 to 600,000 people who visit this place every year. It's an iconic place. It supports the revenue in the economic development of the Santa Cruz area. People come just for this. They stay longer because of the place itself and the things that are around it. It's not a bad thing.
Right. So was it part of like the old Roadside America tour, all the little roadside stops?
It could have been. I can't prove that or say that for a fact, but I wouldn't doubt it at all.
Right. The time period seems right.
Yeah, the era, right. The 30s, 40s, that window, especially opening in the 50s and 60s, as boomers were coming home from the war, the resources were readily available, disposable income, that kind of thing. It's really close to Pacific Coast Highway, US 1, which runs all the way up the coastline of California. So, it would be one of those stop points. And Santa Cruz is one of those classic old towns, much like our beach towns on the East Coast. It has a pier, it has an amusement park. It's got that quaint downtown feel about it, the Americana downtown. And of course, the ocean is the ocean. You can't go wrong.
Right.
Sunsets on the West Coast are beautiful over the ocean. One of the things I do miss the most, I think, because sunrises on the East Coast are way too early for me. So, they're cool too. They're cool too. Don't get me wrong, but I prefer them if I'm still up from the night before versus trying to get up and get out to it. Sunsets on the West Coast are a whole lot easier to manage, and it's almost you start seeing people collect at the beach areas. Getting closer and closer to dusk. It's awesome. So, I want to point this out too, and your question about the roadside attraction brings me to another point of this anomalous location, is that it's not the only one. At least it's not the only one in the United States, and it's certainly not the only one in the world. And that's
Okay.
where I find it be very curious. So there are actually several, and they're also, instead of mystery spots, they're also considered gravity hills. And that's a term that you may have heard, because of a vehicle or an object is left at a place where it appears to be on a decline, but it actually goes the wrong way and goes on the incline. So the
Right.
gravity is reversed in this space where this is. So there are locations called the Oregon Vortex in Gold Hill, Oregon, the Cosmos Mystery Area in Rapid City, South Dakota, the St. Ignatz Mystery Spot in St. Ignatz, Michigan, not too far from us. We might have a road trip there, right? We always talk about road trips to places, these haunted places. Let's go see a paranormal place.
Right.
Confusion Hill, which is in Piercy, California. Now that seems like it should be something, because hey, we're already here in California. This is about 4 hours or so north, and you forget how big California is, how long California is, at least.
Right.
So this is up in the northern corner, a bit away. So it's it's not close. So it's not like it's connected in any way, shape, or form. There was a place in Florida called Spook Hill in Lake Wales. Around the world, there's the mysterious road in Jeju, South Korea, the uphill downhill road of Arcia in Arcia, Italy, and lastly, a big one is the Magnetic Rock in Black Rock, Australia. Places were also, and to the spirit, if you go back to the second slide, the aesthetics that they have for the third slide. I'm sorry, one more up. The kind of look of the mystery spot signage and all of the stuff they do is very similar signage and graphics at St. Ignatz as well.
Okay.
Which I found interesting because they're nowhere near each other. They're two time zones apart and probably a 20-hour drive. One of the things too, and this is living out there, you'll see this everywhere, but there's a mystery spot bumper sticker that basically looks just like the mystery spot with a dot. You see them on everybody's cars, but then you also see them. I've noticed them because I know what they are. I've seen them in places elsewhere in the country. And it's kind of like being here on the East Coast. If you make a trip up to New Hampshire, there's Mount Washington, which is it's the highest point in New Hampshire. And it's a drive, it's a thing you roll into it, you pay a premium, to get in. And once you're in, you can spend the day driving up to the top of the mountain. And you get then a sticker or bumper sticker that says, "This car climbed Mount Washington."
Right.
And I've seen them forever and ever and ever. And I have one, we did it a couple years ago on vacation. So, we go to Vermont all the time. So let's jump over, let's see this, let's do it. And, it's in the glove box of the car. I never put it on. So not yet. But it's one of those iconic things, and that's how this place has become embedded into the culture around the Central Coast, but also elsewhere as well. Because if you go, and the last slide I'd show is the website for the mystery spot location. There's a lot of cool stuff here. There's some videos, a lot more pictures and information about the location. And they talk about how there's people come from around the world just to get here to do this place and experience this gravity phenomenon that they have. So is it paranormal, Chad? Maybe, right?
Maybe. I mean, it's not haunted, but paranormal is something different. Like you said, it's so hard to say without having experienced it. It's definitely
right. Well, it's fair. It's fair.
Like, so you were there. What did you experience?
Well, I recall feeling a little uneasy, and like headachy. But part of that is you're climbing a slight elevation. It's not like you're climbing Mount Everest to get up to this place. You're slightly elevated. You're still close to sea level because the ocean's 5 miles away. But you are elevated. And in the summer it's a little warmer. It's still the mountains, and this is the beauty of being at the Central Coast. It's a moderate temperature. It's a gorgeous place, and the mountains cool you down really quickly. But you're still elevated. You're still a little warmer. You're being active by hiking up through. So some of that could have been there. Is it phenomenal to the place? Maybe. They have some disclaimers and so forth, as I recall. Not a waiver or anything like that, but like if you're not feeling well, please sit down, bring water, stuff like that.
Right.
I didn't have the extraordinary experience of some of the things that were shown in the images, with the drastic lean and so forth, but I saw it happening to people. And it really it's a little off-putting because it seems unnatural, right?
Right.
I remember many years ago now, I guess, there was a band called Jamiroquai. They had a really cool video where the singer was doing these kind of angled positions and stuff. And obviously it's graphics, it's, it's special effects and all that stuff. But it's kind of like that. It's like when it happens, you're like, whoa, So I'd like to go back. I really would. There's a lot of reasons to go back to the Central Coast, in general. But, with respects to going back to see this place again, I really would like the opportunity to do that. And who knows when, if ever, but it's on the bucket list in general. And you also have these other spots, especially as we have locations. And actually too, there's another location in West Virginia that unfortunately it isn't going to make the list because it's a place where it's intentionally designed to like a fun house, and they're selling it as a mystery spot. But the reality is that it's positioned, the rooms are off angle and so forth, and all the door jambs and windows are all crooked on purpose. So it gives you that disorientedness, and it's kind of like us as paranormal investigators. When we get into these old houses, especially on the East Coast, a lot of these places are really old, right? Mm-hmm. And as we get in there, the homes aren't level anymore. They're not square anymore, And sometimes it's really obvious because the door frame's just off enough you can tell. But other places, you walk to the middle of the room and you feel like you're walking downhill because the floor has bowed that much over the course of time. Which always makes me wonder how safe the place really is to be in, right? And we've been in a few of those where it's like we should probably get out of here. But the reality is that that's just the natural, settling or staging of the house through the course of time. Some of that could be an element there because the buildings are pretty old and some of them have actually moved. They've slid down the hill from where they were originally positioned. But the spot is still the same place, regardless. They're still well within the mystery spot radius of the 150 feet. It's curious too. The parking lot, which I don't have a slide to show you of, but the parking lot is the plot where the gentleman was trying to build the house originally. So.
Okay.
Great repurposement of that place, retreat that he was looking to build. So I find it curious. I thought it worthy to bring into the group just as a change of pace, to give us something different to talk and think about. And who knows? Maybe we can get a trip going somewhere someday. It's at least some of the ones that are closer to us. There's a lot to see and do in Florida. So getting down there would be fun. Perhaps we can tie it into a trip to the lighthouse. So,
I mean, that's on my list.
St. Augustine would be fun. So,
I
don't know. I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you to give an opinion of something, but that's kind of what we do. We're at the end of the episode. We're judgmental. So, one way or the other.
Again, without being there and seeing it, it sounds interesting. I definitely like to go and experiment. Experience it and try the compass and see if the compass is still off. And it's there's so many places that we just don't understand what's happening, and it's interesting that the ownership doesn't want to know, but then there's it's because it leaves that question of we don't know, so it makes it definitely paranormal. Whereas if we could find out, then it's not paranormal, right? Because we now have a scientific explanation.
And that's the point, I think. When we in science and technology have advanced, a lot since the 1930s, 40s, that window, the last 80 years have been extraordinary in all the things that have improved for us, and our quality of life and all that stuff. But, in the same way, you want to have some mystery still, pun intended, perhaps, for the mystery spot. Mm-hmm. But we want to still have these elements of uniqueness. And if we could start to explain away everything, there won't be any fun left,
Right.
And the sense of adventure to get there and to experience it yourself and make your own judgment for it. And that's what I think that's what I think this is about more than anything else. It's a curiosity. It's a cool thing because, it does have documentation about it. So it's not like it's just, um, some marketing campaign,
Right.
to say, hey, come in here, and then you wind up there, and you feel like you got
Right.
gypped out of your money, and there is it's a ticketed event kind of thing, so
Right.
you do have to buy your way in, so you're investing in it.
Right.
So, but I think that's like everything else, and people who come to our paranormal events, as guests, hopefully they come with an open mind. We advise they do,
Right.
but their experiences are all going to be different, even though they may be friends in this or members of the same family. And we've had this personal experience stuff happen, you and I side by side. What happened, what I experienced may not be the same as you, even though we're 2 feet apart in the same space at the same time,
Yep.
So that's the allure for me to a place like this, is to get there, get the experience, and if I have some proximity, go back and again and again and again.
Right.
How many times have we seen the same guests come back to us, at the brewery? There's an attraction there, and you got to show up. Things happen when you're there. So
yeah, and like you said, you show up 1 week, it's one thing, and 2 weeks later, it could be completely different, a different
Absolutely.
experience.
Yep, absolutely.
I would say we've never had the same experience over and over there, or anywhere we've gone.
Absolutely. That's it. And we've had the privilege, I guess I'll call it. It's a privilege of going to a couple places over and over again. Prior to your time with us, when we had the Haldeman, we were there every other weekend. Now we're at the brewery every other weekend. Those are niceties, being a host team. And because more times than not, we are finding our ways to get to places, and we've got a chance to get back to White Hill a few times. We had a chance to get back to Crescent a few times. Obviously, from last episode, we like to get back to St. Albans a few times. So there is, that's the draw, right? And all it takes, and this is, I say this at the launch of every investigation with our public crowd. 99% of the time we walk around in the dark and talk to ourselves. We don't know that maybe something's happening, but that 1%, even a half of 1%, is what drives us back to the next time. It drives me. What happened here? And I want to try to make some logic of it, some sense of it. As a general skeptic, I need to understand it better before I'll claim it to be paranormal. But if something happens, I want to see it happen again. It's like, yay, get a little goofy about it, but that's the fun. And I don't expect stuff to happen every week or every time. But it is fantastic when it does.
So it's funny you alluded to Mount Washington, because there's a big haunted hotel in Mount Washington, right?
I don't. What?
Yeah, the Omni Mount Washington Resort is a big haunted hotel. Or sorry, the Mount Washington Hotel.
Excuse me, let me scribble that down. There's that's funny too, because there's, as we travel to Vermont, we kind of move around, and there's quite a few locations there. We were just in Brattleboro. We didn't make it up this year, unfortunately, with schedules and logistics, but we were in Brattleboro, and there is a former mental hospital that has a tower that's claimed to be haunted, and I got to see it, but I couldn't get to it because of where it is on this property. It's private property, unfortunately. Well, unfortunately, but it is. But and then there is there's a castle a little further up mid-state that is haunted. That was USA Haunts was running it, and as they kind of closed out, I think it's still there and it's still operational, but it's now the private ownership that owns it is now running the events there. So there's something everywhere. That's the cool part. And then it doesn't matter that we're in in the East Coast, the West Coast, the Central, Midwest, whatever, Southwest. There's places everywhere, and that's kind of one of those things. And I don't know if you do it when you travel, but I look for stuff. Like I'm gonna be in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks for work for a week, and we're gonna have an episode while I'm in Vegas, by the way.
Okay.
So we're gonna try, but with that, I was already starting to look ahead to see what I could get away to in the evenings, to get out off. I'm at a casino, but I'm at a resort building, on the Strip where the event is, and I'm there for, and you're kind of isolated. But where can I get to elsewhere in proximity that I could reasonably do within the time I have to do it in? I do that all the time. I'm going somewhere. What's ahead of me? So I want to find stuff. I want to see more things. I want to experience more stuff, and you know, have something to share.
So, well, as a little teaser on Mount Washington Hotel,
Yeah.
Princess Carolyn. Okay, you know
Yep.
who she was.
Yes.
Before she was married to the French prince, she was married to the owner of the Joseph Stickney, who was the owner of this hotel, and she had a suite there for the longest time, and it's still considered it's still considered her suite. And she apparently had a habit of looking out over the guests who were seated for dinner to make sure that she wasn't nobody was dressed better than she was, and she apparently will still do that occasionally.
Wow.
So there's some definite interest there that I would love to get up there at some point too.
Absolutely. That's so cool. I had no idea. So here we go. We drove over for the day, drove back, so I didn't have time to plan around it. But oh my gosh, yeah.
So
well,
there's something everywhere.
we need to get a mystery machine. Like we all pile in, take off and go, and we somehow figure out how to be independently wealthy to do this stuff. But
if you figure that out, let me know.
I know, right? Oh, you'll be the second to know. Don't worry. But it's if I could, I would. That'd be cool. But and I traveled for years and years and years, and this was really before I became involved in the paranormal. So I'm sure I missed a ton of places. But road life gets to you after a while. And you've traveled for work. I know. The hotels are hotels. And the restaurants are restaurants. There's nothing exceptional anymore. After a while, you just kind of get stale of it. And then there's no place like home is a true thing when you sleep in your own bed and have your own home cooking and just enjoy your own space. Because it's just not meant for that when you're traveling.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then, paranormal life is late nights and a lot of research, a lot of review. So it's not exactly a glamorous life either. So, but hey, why not?
Yeah. I was at a parent meeting for theater tonight, and they were talking about needing chaperones for the cast party, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's too early for me. That's too early for me." I'm like, I got this.
Yeah, I haven't been in an investigation while I'm so my foot's finally good, right?
Right. Well, I was going to bring that up, but yeah,
walking boots gone. Therapy went well. I'm good. I'm out. I'm ready. So Saturday night, I decided to stay up late and watch the USC football game because it was on the West Coast. It was a 10:30 start, and at like 2:30, it's wrapping up, and I'm thinking to myself, "Oh, this is not the time I normally be leaving the event, so I guess I'm good." So I had to get my practice run in, just to get back in the swing of things. But you're right though. It's a lot of stuff, late and long, and which is great because especially when you hang out after an event, the guests want to talk about their experiences and stuff. I mean, that's so cool.
Well, and that's the best part of it. Sometimes is just that what they've experienced and
the excitement, and their sheer joy of being there, or maybe they're terrified, being terrified. I don't know. Depends how the night goes, but getting that interaction is priceless, and well worth the time spent on it, regardless.
Yep.
All right, my friend. Well, that's what I got. So if anybody's been out to the mystery spot or any of the other locations that are mystery spot or Gravity Hill related, let us know. Drop us a comment. We'll check up on it. I'm curious what others think of it. Those who may have been to the mystery spot itself. It's a chance to give us a thought. It's on the list again. So let's figure it out.
Very cool.
All right. So, and you alluded to it. I'm back this week, so we do have some work to do. Get back.
Good segue. Yeah. So Jamie will be back with the team September 30th at Booby's Brewery. It is National Ghost Hunting Day. Looking forward to having him back there with us. I don't think the world's largest ghost hunt thing is happening this year. I haven't found very much information about it. So there's just a whole bunch of little ones out there. So be part of one. Come join us, or if you're not local, find one to take part in National Ghost Hunting Day. It's always a good experience. Then after that, we've got October 7th and 21st are our other two upcoming public investigations. Tickets are available at the link below. October 14th, the team will be in Columbia. Was it Riverfront Park, Jamie?
River Park, yep.
River Park for the Albatwitch Festival. If you don't know what the Albatwitch is, stop down
Shame if you don't know. You missed our Urban Legends episode.
And maybe leading up to that, we'll have to do a specific.
Yes, I think it's a great idea.
Episode on that. And then we've got the Columbia Mardi Gras Halloween Parade. As you can tell, we do a lot of stuff in the Columbia area. Mount Joy, Lancaster is where we're based. So Columbia, Pennsylvania.
We are 2-time category defending champions in the parade. So
we are. Yep. So next week, Jamie, I'm thinking about diving into or looking through the paranormal lens at yep, that's it. Pennhurst. I'm not going to call it Asylum because that's the Halloween attraction is right. Pennhurst Asylum.
Yep.
It is Pennhurst State School and Hospital.
I thought you were going to say ESP because I was going to have to read your mind for what the subject was going to be.
No. I can never remember the name Pennhurst for some reason. I always draw a blank on it. But anyway, it was the Pennhurst State School and Hospital. This time of year, they do turn it into the Pennhurst Asylum where they have their haunted Halloween attraction. We talked about that last week and how important that is to keeping these places open. Yeah, I visited there earlier this year. So I thought maybe we'd talk about it a little bit.
Cool.
It's a sad history, actually.
It is. Yeah, I know a bit about this too, and we're looking forward to seeing what you pull through on it. So cool. Let's get it.
So, yeah. And the good news is we've sort of got some things laid out for the next couple of weeks. I think you're on the ball and have the next couple of months laid out. So we have a plan.
Well, everybody, listen. This is not. I'm not a disorganized person, but I'm not as organized as Chad. So he sent me a spreadsheet that told me to put topics in, for the next couple of weeks, and I was like, well, okay. So I followed directions well, sir.
We did better than I did.
I noticed it's a shared document. I noticed it was like my stuff so far. Same, but
yeah. So anyway, moving on. These are the places where you can find us: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Got to give a shout out to our social media team. They're doing a good job keeping things going on all the stuff. So check it out. Find out what we're doing. Come join us if you're local anytime. If you're in the area, I know we've had some people from the West Coast watching. Love to have you come out and visit us. Absolutely. And say hi. Yeah. And any final thoughts, Jamie?
Well, I have to rep Santa Cruz Bananas plugs. Get them. So you see Santa Cruz. I really enjoyed looking up this episode. It brought back a lot of memories of being in the area and the fun of the West Coast. And it's the fact that it's only 6:30 in the evening. Thanks to the guys for on the West Coast watching us. I know it's just after the end of your day and you're getting organized to enjoy your evening. So I appreciate you dropping in with us. If you are anybody's out there doing something like this, send us a link. We'd like to get connected and be engaged with your work as well. We really appreciate you spending some time with us every week. And even if it's pop in and pop out, it helps us to know that somebody's out there watching us besides our friends and family.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we really appreciate y'all and keep up the good work in the supporting the paranormal world as you're doing and mm-hmm. keep the work going. It's important. Yep. Really cool.
See, Jamie, I have some thoughts on how we can make it easier to get in touch with us. So maybe we'll work on that before the end of the year. We got a couple months. I don't want to, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, because I would like to connect with some other groups out there who are doing this. And
yeah, I agree. There's a lot out there.
We love having guests. So, if there's another group doing this,
it's true.
We definitely have you on and talk about what you're doing. So
yeah, if you don't want to hear me babble through an episode, come and talk with us.
So, well, on that note, Jamie, you got anything else, or should we just roll it out?
let's I'll see you Saturday, and let's get back to investigating at the brewery.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see
Right on.
you next week.